Okay, so I'm going to go back to, so the question is that, what you're feeling, it feels like a muscle joint, and so pain management's role is to be precise using diagnostic nerve blocks to see is it a nerve, and is the nerve playing a role. Then they use blocks to SI, to the facets to see is there a mechanical component, which one is screaming, causing the pain, right? So the structural, mechanical. So there is a lot of truth to that, and there is a muscle joint, and we talk about the whole neighborhood gets impacted. Like there's one house, and over time it's a frat house. Then if they keep partying, then eventually the neighbor next one is gonna get pissed off and gossip and cause the whole neighborhood. So mechanically, if we go back from the beginning, mechanically then is here's two segments in the spine, right? It usually always starts out this way, right? 99% of the time, whether it's trauma induced or, so that's big trauma or small trauma. So it's this, okay? We have compressive load, right? And so a lot of times compressive load is not bad, right? But when you add the lack of control, right? Then we get shear force, and you have two type of forces and load, and over time your body doesn't like that, and then if you don't do anything, sometimes this doesn't cause pain, right? Sometimes this doesn't, right? But over time your body will stiffen up to self-protect it, where if you let it out for a long period of time, and this is the only component in the whole big scheme of thing, it will cause a pseudo arthritis, pseudo fusion. So there's times when people have a certain type of pain, like sciatica, a disc bulge, and sharp pain, stabbing pain, pain with coughing, sneezing, but over time it becomes more of a stiff and dull aching, right? And so that's your body brings on osteophytes, facet issues, in fancy word for basically stiffening of the joint to give you a pseudo fusion. That's the usual progression, and that's arthritis. So arthritis is lack of ability to control stress to the joint, okay? And so you help that by adding control to that joint. So muscle adapts to that situation, because now you have a joint that doesn't allow it to move, a joint that doesn't move well, and then some muscle stays healthy by movement through full capacity. So you only use through small capacity, like just sitting and just walking, which is good, but you only use it within a short capacity, then it doesn't get through the whole capacity, and then it can cause stiffness too, right? And so now you have a joint, a muscle addition to this joint that's not moving well. So the hierarchy is, so this is compressive force and shear force. Over time you get stiffness, right? So the body's amazing, but if we go back, then so we want to control that shear. Shear's the one that I deal with. We got to get the muscle and joint to work in harmony. So what controls the joint from moving too much? We're talking about micro, but over time impacts what you happen. This is where, like, say people who had car accident for like 20 years ago, and then like why now is this whole thing, okay? And then so what controls it, like ligaments, tendons, stuff to restrain it, connective tissue that restrains a muscle. So that becomes what you talk about, like decreased circulation, lack of movement, fibrosis within it, and then what goes and impacts and tells muscle what to do, and ligaments, not ligaments, just muscles, the nerves, right? And so that's where they want to do like nerve blocks to see which one the nerve is it, and then they inject the joint and then inject the muscle to see. However, if we're talking about tension, because that's what you're feeling is tension, I feel tension and stiffness.
Mm-hmm.
The tricky part is I also put in thoughts and beliefs and habits and circulation and holistic internal health, circulation, inflammation, and a waste removal issue. And if we're talking about tension, then I had to talk before about I can manipulate tension very easily. I could turn off the room, the lights, and make it pitch dark, and a kid without any teaching will stiffen up because it's a scary moment, it's a threat. Then I could take and cause if there's an earthquake, everyone will stiffen up to lower their center of mass and cause compressive load to not fall. So that's tension, right? So a balance problem can add more to this joint. So if you dress the joint, even though it's precise and it makes sense and it takes away the pain, and after a while the pain comes back, if your body feels like it's walking, if there's an earthquake, every single step you take.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's
so
why
the underlying cause is still there.
Yeah, and same thing for vision, right? That's why we work on vision.
So if an earthquake happens and the house falls apart and you rebuild the house, that doesn't help if there's going to be another earthquake.
Yeah, if there's a foundation thing, right? And so that's why eyes are important. That's why neck health is important, because neck health can sway how your back responds. Like you ride a bike, and if you see something that attracts you, then you look, and then you have to resist that. So your neck plays a role, which is driven by the eyes. And so tension is the whole game. And so now we could go to beliefs, because if you've been burnt many times and hurt, then now there's a belief that's feeding you to the tension. Like if you have a boss or an in-law or like environment that isn't conducive to healing, that facilitates tension. So a mechanic of a car can fix the car if it's a mechanical thing, but you still get tickets and worst case scenario crash if you don't have if you have poor eyes, if you're always distracted on the phone, right? If you're distracted, so if you have many things, if you're like, so that's where meditation can help, and that,
So I never made that connection before. How meditation helps is it cuts down on the stress of the muscles and body, which is sort of balling up to protect itself.
Yeah, because that's like, I like to say that's static interference between the brain and the body, want to communicate more efficiently. Because if you have a party to host, and you have a deadline, you have this, that's going to be more on your mind versus let's give you a clean, healthy movement pattern. Yeah, so that's why beliefs and habits also play a role. So like if so we're trying to avoid speeding tickets and car accident, but if you keep driving fast in residential, then habits play more role. The mechanics get more money, but it's the habit that got to change. So habits plays a role along with tension-driven patterns like balance, vision, neck, and our thoughts, And so there's a lot of complexity. So then if it's not a belief or balance or stuff, then it's about giving the tissue the best environment to heal. And that's where inflammation, that's where circulation, impacts. So chronic low-grade inflammation, you have something, a pathogen that's holding you back. So it's constant diabetes, a metabolic issue, a viral load, stuff like that. And then that's all good and dandy if you put in the right fuel for the car, you drive the mechanic. But if you're not removing the oil, so removing the waste, recovering every day, that's where sleep plays a role. So that's when that all happens. So it is a muscle joint, but I wish it was that easy. Because muscle joint is just take the brunt of it. Okay. And it can be very complex.
So I get what you're saying is even if I fixed it, like getting this fusion, the underlying, all this other stuff is having the impact.
Yeah, and that's
forget an earthquake. If you live in a hurricane area, it doesn't, you can keep building again, but
yeah. So like for yours it is a true mechanical. We could release the tension, work on the joint. But if the processing, the spatial awareness is what you have a hard time.
Mhm.
You know, if you can't drive and you're always distracted, then more likely you're not gonna see the cop, and the cop pulls you over, right? And so
Or you could just fix your tail light.
yeah, so there's spatial awareness, processing, that all plays a role.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's complex, but
All right. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah, okay.